anarchy.
They sold out arenas. They won Grammys. Their voices were on every radio, in every home, at every cookout across America. And some of them died with less than $30,000 in the bank. This is not a story about bad decisions. This is a story about a system, a music industry that handed black artists the spotlight and kept the money for itself. They gave you the fame and took the fortune. They gave you the record deal and kept the publishing rights. They gave you the advance and called it a debt you could never. None of it. You already know the songs. What you don't know is what happened behind them. Welcome to Retro Vinyl, the channel that uncovers the stories the industry never wanted told. If this is your first time here, number 12, Give Up the Funk. George Clinton, 1976. If you have ever been to a party, a real party, you have heard that bass line. Give Up the Funk by Parliament, 1976. The song that defined what it meant to move, to groove, to lose yourself completely in a beat. George Clinton built an entire universe around that music. Parliament, Funkadelic, the P-Funk Mob, 50 musicians deep, 4 #1 R&B hits. A catalog that became the most sampled body of work in the history of hip-hop. Dr. Dre sampled it, Kendrick sampled it, Beyonce sampled it. Every time you heard that pocket, there was a check attached to it. And George Clinton saw almost none of that money. In 1984, Clinton filed for bankruptcy. His publishing rights, the songs he wrote between 1976 and 1983, it's his entire commercial peak, were signed over to a Michigan-based company called Bridgeport Music. Clinton argued he never signed a valid contract. A federal judge ruled against him in 2001. Over $100 million in profits, gone. In 2025, at 83 years old, Clinton filed yet another lawsuit, seeking $100 million and the return of 90% of his catalog, claiming his business partner had fraudulently stolen the rights to his life's work. The man who told the world to tear the roof off the sucker spent decades unable to tear the papers off his own music. Number 11. Freddie's Dead, Curtis Mayfield, 1972.
All I want is some peace of mind with a little love.
That falsetto, that ache, that warning dressed up as a groove. Curtis Mayfield recorded Freddie's Dead as part of the Superfly soundtrack in 1972. It hit number 2 on the R&B charts. The full soundtrack outsold the film itself, one of only a handful of soundtracks in history to do that.
Misery was his woman and things. No.
Mayfield owned his own label, Curtom Records. He owned his masters. He wrote songs that Dr. King played on civil rights marches. He was 30 years ahead of the conversation about black artists controlling their work.
Love, I'm trying to find. This could be such a beautiful.
Then came August 13th, 1990. Mayfield was headlining an outdoor show at Wingate Field in Brooklyn when a wind gust, clocked at up to 54 miles per hour, collapsed the lighting rig directly onto his neck. His spine was crushed in 3 places. Yet he was paralyzed from the neck down at the age of 48.
Well, with a wonderful girl, oh, I need a woman child.
The medical costs were staggering. His home caught fire shortly after the accident, destroying a priceless collection of master tapes stored in the basement. And yet, he kept working, lying flat on his back in the studio, using gravity to fill his lungs. He recorded one line at a time. His final album, New World Order, earned 3 Grammy nominations in 1996. In 1998, he had his right leg amputated due to diabetes. He died on December 26, 1999, at 57 years old. His estate was later fought over by managers who took hundreds of thousands of dollars in commissions. While his widow fought for what little remained, he broke his back, but not his spirit. And that line is the saddest tribute I have ever heard. Number 10, theme from Shaft. Isaac Hayes, 1971. You hear those two notes and you know exactly where you are. Theme from Shaft reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in November 1971 and stayed there for 2 weeks. The Shaft soundtrack topped the Billboard 200. It won the Academy Award for Best Original Song. Isaac Hayes became the first black man to win an Oscar in a non-acting category.
He's a complicated man, and no one...
And the film itself, made on a $500,000 budget, grossed $13 million at the box office, single-handedly saving MGM from bankruptcy. Let that land. Isaac Hayes' music saved a Hollywood studio from going broke, and 5 years later, Isaac Hayes himself went broke. By 1976, his label Stax Records had collapsed under $6 million in debt. Federal marshals seized the building. They seized the master tapes. Stax owed Hayes royalties it could never pay. He had taken out loans against those unpaid royalties. The debt spiraled. In 1976, Isaac Hayes filed for bankruptcy. He listed over $6 million in liabilities. He lost his home, his personal property, and the rights to all future royalties from every song he had ever written. The man who created the coolest song in cinema history was evicted from his own catalog. By the time of his death in 2008, his net worth was estimated at $500,000. For a man whose music had generated hundreds of millions, his son, Isaac Hayes III, has spent decades fighting to bring that catalog back home. They gave Shaft everything, and gave Isaac Hayes almost nothing. Number 9, Got to Give It Up. Marvin Gaye, 1977. That groove is so alive, it barely sounds like it was recorded in a studio, because in many ways, it wasn't. Marvin Gaye recorded Got to Give It Up in late 1976 and released it in 1977. It hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the most joyful songs he ever made. But here is what was happening behind it. Anna Gordy Gaye had filed for divorce. She was the sister of Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown, the very label that made Marvin famous. She was asking for $1 million, and Marvin Gaye was nearly broke. His attorney came up with a solution that would become one of the most extraordinary negotiations in music history. Marvin was owed a $305,000 advance on his next album. His lawyer convinced him to hand that directly to Anna, plus the first $295,000 of royalties from whatever album he recorded next. Anna agreed, $600,000 total. The judge wrote up the order. And then Marvin Gaye went into the studio to record an album, knowing every dollar it earned would go straight to his ex-wife. The album he made was called Hear My Dear, a 73-minute poison pen letter addressed directly to Anna, every lyric a reckoning with their marriage. It sold poorly. Critics called it weird. And the agreement meant that if it failed to earn $293,000 within 2 years, Marvin owed the difference himself. He filed for bankruptcy in 1976. He fled to Europe to escape IRS debt. He was still financially crippled the day before his death in 1984. The man behind the most sensual catalog in soul music died owing more than he owned. Number 8, Waterfalls. TLC, 1994. 7 consecutive weeks at number 1, the second biggest single of 1995, an album that went diamond, the only album by a female group in American history to ever achieve that certification.
I seen a rainbow yesterday, but too many storms have come and gone, leaving.
And on July 3rd, 1995, T-Boz, Left Eye, and Chili filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, $3.5 million in debt. Here is the detail that makes this story extraordinary. TLC's contract with LaFace Records and their management company Toni allowed for a 7% royalty rate per album. That sounds reasonable until you understand what happened next. From that 7%, LaFace and Toni deducted recording costs, music video production, promotion, airline travel, hotel rooms, food, clothing, and every other expense they could categorize. And what remained for TLC was approximately 56 cents per album sold, split 3 ways. The more successful the album became, the more expenses were charged against their earnings. Success and debt moved in the same direction. After 5 years in the industry, TLC had generated an estimated $175 million in revenue. According to reports, they received about 1% of that. At the 1996 Grammy Awards, after winning Best R&B Album for Crazy Sexy Cool, Chili walked up to the microphone and said, "We are as broke can be." They also discovered that Toni owned their name. TLC did not own the letters T, L, and C. They eventually bought their own name back for $3 million, $1 million per letter. They borrowed $15,000 from Andre Rison, and Left Eye's boyfriend, just to file the lawsuit. The best-selling American girl group of all time could not afford their own attorney. Number 7. Unbreak My Heart. Toni Braxton, 1996.
Don't leave me in all this pain.
11 weeks at number 1, one of the greatest selling singles in history, an album that moved 15 million copies worldwide. And in January of 1998, Toni Braxton filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Here is the number that breaks this story open.
Nights are so unkind.
Her debut album generated $170 million in global sales for Arista and LaFace Records. Toni Braxton's lawyer confirmed to the Los Angeles Times that she earned less than 35 cents per album.
Don't leave me in all this pain.
She later revealed publicly she received a total of $1,972 from her first recording contract. Not $1,972 a week. Not a month. Total. The machine worked exactly as designed. The label gave her an advance. They then gave her an advance on the next record to pay back the first. Then another advance. She was perpetually in debt to the people who owed her millions. In 2010, she filed for bankruptcy again. This time after self-financing her Las Vegas residency. She fainted on stage from a heart condition called microvascular angina. She was forced to cancel the show. The insurance company denied her claim. She owed between $10 and $50 million. She also lost the copyright to several of her songs at auction while in bankruptcy court. Someone else owns the recordings that made Toni Braxton famous. 70 million records sold, 7 Grammys won, and she stood in a courthouse watching strangers bid on her own music.
Don't leave me out in the...
Number 6. I Will Always Love You. Whitney Houston, 1992. 14 weeks at number 1. The best-selling soundtrack album of all time. A voice that every vocal coach, every music teacher, every singer alive will reference for as long as there is music. Whitney Houston sold over 220 million records worldwide. In 2001, she signed a contract with Sony and Arista for $100 million, the largest recording deal in history at that time. And when she died on February 11, 2012, at 48 years old, she owed her record label $20 million.
So goodbye.
She had not mismanaged a small fortune. She had burned through an enormous one. Years of addiction treatment, multiple properties, a turbulent divorce from Bobby Brown, an entourage that never stopped eating, and years of advances from labels she could never repay. By 2007, her bank account held approximately $29,000. Her Atlanta home had been repossessed. Her New Jersey estate was nearly foreclosed. Her mentor, Clive Davis, reportedly loaned her $1.2 million personally, just to stabilize her situation. That is all. And here is the detail nobody mentions when they play that song. Dolly Parton wrote, "I Will Always Love You." Whitney Houston recorded the most iconic version of it in history. And Dolly Parton received every dollar of the publishing royalties. Not 1 cent of that royalty stream went to Whitney. Because Whitney did not own the song. She owned the performance. The industry owned everything else. 220 million records, the greatest voice of her generation. And the bank statement at the end read, negative $20 million. Number 5, I Got You, I Feel Good. James Brown, 1965.
I feel good. I feel good.
That scream is the most recognizable 1-second sound in the history of recorded music. Before a single lyric is sung, you already know that feeling. James Brown, the godfather of soul, the hardest working man in show business. The man who practically invented funk, shaped soul, and laid the foundation for every rhythm-based genre that followed. He performed over 330 nights a year in the 1960s. He owned his own private jet. He ran his own record label. He was worth an estimated $100 million at his peak. And then the IRS came. By the late 1980s, Brown owed the government millions in back taxes. His managers and business partners owned the publishing rights to his catalog, meaning Every Time I Feel Good was licensed. And every time it played in a commercial or a film, he received almost nothing. His final years were spent in legal battles over his estate that stretched years past his death. He died in December 2006. Within weeks, relatives, girlfriends, former advisors, and the state of South Carolina were all fighting over what remained. His estate spent nearly 17 years in litigation before a settlement was finally reached in 2023. His own children were denied access to his estate while the lawyers collected fees. He worked 330 nights a year so that other people could own what he built. The hardest working man in show business, and someone else took his check home.
So good, so I got you.
Number 4, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Diana Ross. 1970. That orchestral swell, that spoken intro, the feeling that something enormous is about to arrive. Ain't No Mountain High Enough hit number 1 in 1970. As Diana Ross's first solo single after leaving the Supremes, the group that had generated more number 1 hits than any act in Motown history. Here is what most people do not know about Diana Ross and money. Motown Records, founded by Berry Gordy, was built on a specific financial model. The label owned the masters. The label owned the publishing. Artists received a weekly salary, reportedly as low as $2.50 per day during their earliest years, while touring constantly and generating millions. Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, Ma and Florence Ballard recorded as the Supremes for years before they saw meaningful royalties. Florence Ballard, the original lead singer, was replaced, pushed out, and died in 1976 at the age of 32 on welfare, with a $600 grant from the state of Michigan as her only income. The original lead singer of one of the most commercially successful groups in American history died on public assistance. Diana Ross herself would spend decades fighting over the Supremes' catalog, over the characterization of her solo deal, and over what Motown owed versus what was paid. The system Berry Gordy built was brilliant for Gordy, and often devastating for the artists who built it. And that is the story the Motown Museum does not put on its wall. You are watching Retro Vinyl, where the real story lives. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that button now, because what is coming next on this countdown is the one that still does not make sense. Number 3, Lady Marmalade, Patti LaBelle, 1975. Number 2, My Guy, Mary Wells, 1964. The steadiest groove Motown ever recorded, a song so clean, so assured, so certain of its own perfection. It sounds like it was born complete. My Guy hit number 1 in 1964, making Mary Wells the first Motown artist to top the Billboard pop charts. She was 21 years old. She was the first queen of Motown. And this is where the story turns cold. Mary Wells left Motown in 1964, lured away by a competing offer. What she did not fully understand was that Motown owned her recordings, every master, every release. By leaving, she effectively walked away from the catalog that made her famous and into a series of deals that produced almost nothing commercially. Her recording career never recovered at the same level. She kept working, she always kept working, but the checks never matched the legacy. In the late 1980s, Wells was diagnosed with throat cancer. She lost her voice, the instrument that had carried My Guy to the top of every chart in the world. She required surgery. The medical bills were devastating. By 1990, the first queen of Motown was broke and battling cancer. Berry Gordy did not pay her medical bills. Rod Stewart held a benefit concert. Aretha Franklin, Bruce Springsteen. They contributed personally to cover her expenses. Mary Wells died on July 26, 1992, at the age of 49. Her family could not afford a proper headstone. A fan organization raised the money for her grave marker years later. She went to number 1 at 21. She died at 49 with nothing, and the label that made millions off her voice let her fight cancer without financial support. This is the one that stays with me the longest. Number 1, Who's That Lady? The Isley Brothers, 1973. That guitar. Ernie Isley was 21 years old when he laid that down, and it sounds like the most confident thing ever put on tape. The Isley Brothers, one of the longest-running acts in the history of American music, recording continuously from 1954 to the present day. Across 6 decades, across every genre shift, soul, funk, R&B, rock, quiet storm, they did something almost no black artist of their era managed to do. In 1969, they founded T-Neck Records, their own independent label. They owned their masters. They controlled their publishing. They were the blueprint before the blueprint had a name. But here is what happened anyway. In 1997, Ronald Isley was convicted of tax evasion. He had underpaid on over $4 million in income. And he owed the IRS $5 million in back taxes and penalties. In 2000, he began a 27-month prison sentence. A man who had done everything right, owned his label, owned his masters, controlled his publishing, still lost it all to taxes he never paid. In 2010, while Ronald was dealing with additional IRS claims, multiple properties were foreclosed. Legal bills mounted. The brothers who had inspired Prince, who had given Jimi Hendrix his first real touring gig, who had built an empire on their own terms, were in financial ruin. And the reason I put the Isleys at number 1 is not because their story is the most dramatic. It is because their story proves something no one wants to say out loud. Even when you own everything, even when you do it right, even when you control the masters, the publishing, and the label, the industry still finds a way. The Isley Brothers didn't just make music, they built a fortress, and it still wasn't enough. 12 voices, 12 fortunes made and lost. And one industry that has been running the same playbook for 70 years. The contracts, the recoupable expenses, the publishing rights signed away before an artist understood what publishing even meant. The advances that became debts. The managers who took 10 times what their clients kept. This is not ancient history. This is still happening. And the first step to changing it is knowing the story. This is Retro Vinyl. I will see you on the next one. Keep the needle on the record and the volume where it belongs.
You still ripped him up and abused him.